What is up, everybody? Today we're back on the R3, and we are talking about the theme of owning things that take a lot of work, or owning things that you worship versus things that you just use. And that is a big part of why I love this R3. It's because I don't mind taking it down a gravel road. I don't mind trying to learn how to wheelie on it. I don't mind taking it to the racetrack, right? It is a tool that is here to serve me. It's reliable, it's good, but it's not going to like financially wreck me if something bad happens to it. I was kind of hoping that all the salt would be off the road, but I can see just a little bit of the salt still in the road from the snow we had. We haven't had a good rain yet to wash it all away, but you know, I just want to go out and ride. And that's part of the reason why I love the R3. You know, many years ago, I had a really nice car. I loved that car so much. It was a manual transmission sports car. It took premium fuel, and I just loved it. And I would spend so much time cleaning it and detailing it. And whenever I had a problem, I was super worried about it. I didn't have the money to fix it when it had problems, and so I was, you know, I was riding above my means, basically, right? Driving a car I couldn't really afford to keep on the road. And recently, I've been watching a lot of Doug DeMuro videos, and I've been going to Cars and Coffee a lot. Probably for like the past year, I've been going to this one Cars and Coffee event, and I've just been really itching to buy a car. I mean, it's just like, I just really want to buy a car, like either like an older Porsche, maybe like a Corvette. I mean, there's just so many cool cars now with so much horsepower that it's just so tempting to want to get one of these new cars and have all that power to enjoy. But you know, I just keep coming back to this thought of like, man, like, would I actually use it if I had it? Right? Because I've known people that have had Ferraris, but they were just kind of middle managers in like a corporate company. They couldn't really afford a Ferrari, right? They bought a Ferrari, they put it in their garage, and then whenever it broke, it would sit for months or like a year, and because they couldn't afford to drive it, right? Same thing like Porsche 911s or something they would buy because they couldn't really afford it, right? And I've thought a lot about how the value compares between cars and motorcycles, right? And you know, bang for the buck with a motorcycle, you get so much good acceleration for so cheap, and you know, you're kind of paying for that with comfort because it's just not as comfortable or easy as being in a car. And you're also paying for it with some like risk and inconvenience, right? You could argue motorcycles are cheaper because you don't have a protective bubble around you, and you don't have, you know, weather protection, right? It's pretty inconvenient to use your motorcycle in inclement weather like high winds or rain, and all that's fair. But you know, the thing that really keeps me riding motorcycles and why I just can't pull the trigger on getting one of these cars that I want. I mean, I browse cars and bids or bring a trailer every day, and the reason why I just still can't pull the trigger on buying one is that I just keep thinking about, would I actually use it or would I worship it, right? I heard someone talk recently, and they were talking about how religion is anything you spend your solitude, like thinking about or doing, right? Like, religion is what you do in your solitude, it's where your mind is. And I was just like, oh man, like, or like things you kind of worship, right? And I was like, man, I think some people really do worship their cars, and I had a problem with that. And that's where I think, like, this bike, $1,800 for it, it gives me so much enjoyment. It's so fun to wring it out It's reliable, right? I take good care of it. I'm meticulous with maintenance on it still, but I can do it all myself, and it's really affordable, right? It's really cheap to maintain this bike. The gas is really cheap, right? I never have to think about, can I afford to take the R3 somewhere, right? I just think about, like, do I want to take the R3 somewhere? Like, is it a trip I would enjoy to take, or would I rather just drive or take another bike or whatever, right? And that's where I just think motorcycles outshine cars in value so much, because I remember with cars, just, it almost felt like, you know, a car that you can barely afford the gas on or afford repairs. It just feels like every time you rev it out and, like, get it up towards that red line, it just feels like such a treat, right? Like, it just feels like such a treat. Like, oh, like, I can't afford to do this all the time, right? So it's, like, very special. But on a motorcycle, I mean, they really are just, they're so reliable nowadays. I'm really shocked by it, honestly, how good these things are. How I can take this bike to the racetrack and I can ping it off the rev limiter for 20 minutes straight in a heat, turn it off, start it right back up, and do my next heat without ever worrying about, will it start, will it run, am I going to blow something up? I mean, as long as I don't horribly blow a downshift, I suppose, and go down, like, multiple, I mean, it's just really reliable. It's really good. And so I just think about that a lot. And that's where, man, motorcycles just, it almost is like a value to ride motorcycles, just because of the gas, how cheap it is to run these on gas. I mean, even if you're on a flagship leader bike, your MPG still isn't that bad compared to some of these cars. Maintenance, I mean, tires, but I don't even go through brakes that much or anything where it really is that prohibitive from a maintenance standpoint to do any of this stuff. Maybe if I paid someone to do it, right? And that's where we get into the people who really worship their cars. Like, I think of Porsche Carrera GT owners, right? And people like that who own those high-end cars, where it's like a culture of, like, shame on you if you drove this, right? It's like, no, you're supposed to just own this as an investment, and you're never supposed to actually enjoy this. You're not supposed to actually drive it, you know? And when you own one, you should talk about how difficult it is to, like, tame or difficult to ride, and be like, oh, I can't actually ride this Carrera GT because it takes so much skill, right? So much skill to drive 35 miles per hour at the speed limit. How dare you drive your car? And to me, it's just like a goofy concept of, like, how dare you use your vehicle. And that's why the most interesting cars to me on, like, Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer are all the cars that actually have miles. And, you know, pretty consistently you can find vehicles like Honda S2000s, maybe the NSXs, you know, some Supras like Toyotas. You can find some cars that actually get miles on them, or actually driven and enjoyed. Like, they bring smiles to people's face when you see them go down the road, and there's not this, like, culture of shame on you for actually driving a car. Because how silly is that, honestly? Like, in motorcycles I think the culture is entirely different, and that's why I think it's a lot more healthy, right? Like, motorcycles, you just tend not to put as many miles on it because you're not going to use it to get groceries, you're not going to be carting people around, so it just gets a little bit less miles on it usually than, like, your daily driver car. But I have never seen anybody say, how dare you for driving like a Ducati V4, or how dare you for putting miles on a CBR 250RR, like the Baby Blade, right? Even these bikes that are rare and revered and, like, collectible or highly desirable, it's still, in motorcycles, we still haven't hit that peak of, like, crazy $1 million bikes, right? We don't have that kind of thing. And honestly, I think any manufacturers that try to do that, where they try to say, you know, if someone makes, like, a self-balancing Batmobile bike or whatever, you know, maybe you could sell like a couple of them, but it's never going to be a commercial success like a Ferrari car would be, where you can sell thousands of them, because that's just not the way motorcyclists are. And that's one thing I super appreciate about the motorcycling community and the culture of it, is that people who ride motorcycles tend to actually like to push things to the limit. And these car collectors who have these super nice cars that, you know, tons of people would love to experience or see or learn about or drive, they'll never get the chance to, because they stay locked up in a cement basement to protect it from ultraviolet light and, you know, keep dust off of it and keep people from dinging the doors. And I get it, it's frustrating to have people ding your doors or whatever, but it's also kind of a loss, I think, that these cars aren't enjoyed more. And so that's just a little bit about my thought process. And, you know, I keep wanting to buy one of these cars, but at the end of the day, I'm just so happy on my bikes. You know, if someone steals this, if someone wants to borrow it and ride it, if someone wants to whatever, right? It's not the end of the world. And, you know, it's not going to financially ruin me. Whereas I think with cars, a lot of people convince themselves that, oh, this car will be an investment. And in general, no car is an investment, right? The only cars that end up being investments are kind of ones that like people didn't even predict that much to be an investment. And that's kind of why they become an investment, right? So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you get out and you ride your bike, even if it's not the best conditions. And I hope you enjoy a bike that, you know, just serves you as a tool or as something that's really enjoyable, but not something you have to worship and baby and spend all of your time worrying about, rather than just enjoying your time with it. So thanks, and I will catch you all on the next video.